Welcome everyone to the 146th episode of Politically High Tech with your host, Elias. In this episode, we have a special guest here who's going to share us wise knowledge, not just in the medical field. I'm sure you saw the doctor, the MD title. He obviously goes beyond that, okay? I mean, I'm sure he's great at healthcare. I mean, I'm not going to question him on that. I'm definitely not going to debate him on that unless I want to make myself look stupid, you know. But I'm not going to do that. If anything, I am here to learn and just probably provide some questions. I might expose my own biases, but I don't mind if you're getting challenged because I'm here to learn and to grow. And there's also for you listeners as well to learn and to grow. Or if you want to be confrontational about it, challenge it. It's America. Last time I checked, we still have this right left, even though it's been compromised in more than one front. But let's welcome Dr. Please feel free to, if I butcher your name, Ravi Iyer. That's that right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, good. And I always try to show some respect by trying to get the name right. So here he has his book. If you watch this through video, you see a background of the Reaper's Dance. Ooh, what a evil, provocative title. I mean, COVID's been definitely a hard time and it's definitely real. I am not going to play to the craziness that this whole thing was a hoax. That was a mistake of the far right people in particular. I am not going to play into that. It's not that kind of show. If you want to hear those kind of conspiracy theories, this is definitely the wrong podcast. You get your bags, pack it, and leave because I am not promoting that. As we know, that is a classic example and an obvious example of misinformation. Okay. As much as I'm pro free speech, I am also careful with information that I share. If I'm wrong, I try to correct it as soon as possible. Okay. So let's see. So let's welcome. Introduce yourself. What do you do and what wisdom you're going to provide to this lovely, small, and humble audience?
Hi, I'm Dr. Ravi Iyer. I practice medicine in Virginia. I have a clinic. We have three offices. It's called the Iyer Clinics. And we started this practice way back in 1996. And so 25 years, no, more than that, 28 years, 28 or 29 years. And we've been practicing in the Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, and Loudoun counties these last almost 3 decades. I've been a physician for almost 40 years. I got my original license in 1983 in India. And so this year, I just crossed 40 years as a physician. And after getting my physician's degree and doing my basic training, I decided to switch careers and went into hardcore basic research, went into molecular biology. I was studying the reasons why people get infected with tuberculosis and leprosy. So we were studying the mechanisms of how the body fights these bacterial infections and how in certain cases it's not able to overcome it and how to stimulate the immune response. That work brought me to Harvard as a fellow in 1988. I was a research fellow in medicine at Harvard Medical School, and as well as a dual appointment as a research fellow in medicine at the MGH Cancer Center at the Iyer Lab. And I spent a few years there before I moved to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and Children's Hospital to continue my work. Kind of career switches, opportunities took me to George Washington, where I did my residency. And after that, I started working in a clinic in Northern Virginia. I loved it and decided to start a clinic with the idea of having some amount of community clinical practice as well as being connected to research. And to this day, I've been successful. It was a novel concept. That time, doctors were either doctors or they were scientists. You could not marry the two unless you were in an academic center. I wanted to see if I could be out in private practice and see patients in the community as well as be able to do some research. So my clinic, I was successful over the years to develop a clinic where we do both. We do clinical trials and we do community medicine. And we are one of the few practices that see patients in the office. We also do house calls in this day and age. That's something that is almost unheard of. But those house calls became very valuable during COVID when we were the only physicians who would actually go to the house of a COVID patient and treat them in the house at a time when there was no medicine and no immunity and no vaccine. We were doing that in our community. So that's who I am. And happy to be here in your show.
I thank you for attending. So now I definitely feel more comfortable asking questions about COVID because I am not a medical doctor, and I always recommend every time I talk about something that's medically related, go to your doctor, go to your trusted doctor, go to trusted medical sources to get information. I am not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor because let's just say it will cause not so great results. So definitely listen to me when it comes to that. So I'm happy to ask questions, even talk about COVID, because these have someone who is a legit doctor with tons of experience. So good. Now I feel comfortable. I only talked about it in brief in the context of politics, but I never did try to act like I know everything. I always put a little disclaimer. So, because I like to be responsible, even though a lot of people forget freedom comes with responsibility. So certain people forget that. So some people just want unlimited freedom and no consequences. No, freedom comes with responsibility because it could be taken away. All right. So the question I have is, I'm gonna actually start um backwards. I normally do what something very simple, but I want to talk about the COVID pandemic because you'd be the right person to talk to. So this may be a little dicey, but I'm going to ask anyways. How do you think the medical community and the experts performed during this pandemic? And let me just be very clear: I don't consider this pandemic over. It just the surge just comes and goes. That's the way I see it. Feel free to correct me there.
Mixed bag. I think that the physicians in the front line actually taking care of patients in the community, taking care of patients in the hospital, in the Iyer, did phenomenal work. They did amazing, amazing work at great personal cost and personal risk, freely, and not just in the US, all over the world. They were, I have no words to describe the kind of heroism that we saw in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 at the height of the pandemic when there was no medicine at hand, there was no treatment, there was no immunity to the disease, and the doctors and frontline workers, healthcare workers, first responders, ambulance and firemen, all of them performed. I really have no words to say how deeply human and emotional that response was. And if the rest of the world spend 1 or 2 days every month honoring these people, 100 years would not be enough to honor them. They really, really made a difference. So that's the mixed bag. That's the good part. The bad part was policy makers, the medical institutions, the organizations, the public policy, whether it was the CDC or the NIH or the academicians, the various physician societies, American Society for Internal Medicine, American Society for Cardiology, American, infectious disease organization. All these or entities failed miserably. They failed in their goal of presenting an authoritative, coordinated education campaign. They were conflicted in their recommendations. They were arrogant in their statements. They were resistant to revealing how little they knew. They were they had difficulty articulating that what they were saying was based on guesses, and they were more about trying to look good than trying to actually be human. And in this, it was the worst of times and the most depressing and shameful chapter in the history of organized medicine. But having said that, I have great respect for certain organizations that did very well. I happen to be a member of a physicians group called Greater Washington Physicians of Indian origin, a large group of physicians who practice in the Washington area, Greater Washington area. And our group did a phenomenal job in what we did was we started, first we did was we started setting up free video teaching courses to each other. That is, we doctors started teaching other of our colleagues how to deal with this. So, so then once we started something called Each One Teach One campaign, and we very quickly shared what was working with us in the clinic to other community doctors in our area. And then we translated that into community based medicine into our communities and set up COVID drive through sites that we could do testing and treating right there in the parking lots. So every day we had a network of people sharing that knowledge, and it was a shared experience. So so that is the mixed bag on one hand. So, but that mixed bag of community activism that came out among the physician community, when we realized that the institutions, organized medicine was failing us, we said, to hell with you guys. I'm going to wait for you to get your act together. I'm going to step out, and I know how to deal with this. And I'm going to deal with it my way for my patients. I want to make sure that my patients are safe, my staff are safe, and I'm going to see what works. And I'm going to tell my friends, my other doctor friends, that hey, this is what works. This is how you can keep your office open. As a result, in Fairfax County, there are 8,000 or 10,000 physicians in our area. So, assuming that the average practice is two physicians, so at least there are about 5,000 practices. But if you look at that, all the physicians who were members of were able to keep their practice open during the pandemic, successfully manage patients, be productive, not lose revenue, not lose patients, not lose their own health. Whereas all the other physician practices, they shut down. Many of them had to file for bankruptcy. They could not survive, and they did not know how to survive. So, in that sense, we really took care of not only our patients, we took care of our fellow physicians very well.
That is phenomenal. Now, I mean, I have to say, you kept, you prevented the people you take care of being fell a victim of politicalization, because a
Yeah,
lot of it was just politics.
yeah,
there. I mean, if you want to read between your lines, this is hella communities. We know better, even though we don't know what we do and what we talking about. And and the one I put a lot of blame on, really, I'm going to call out his name. I might get in trouble. Well, and so I would say people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and others. I mean, they didn't do such a good job to me. I lost trust because before I used to trust the community almost wholeheartedly. But until this situation happens, I'm not gonna wait. My life is on the line, my family's life is on the line. And personally, I take care of family. We accidentally spread the thing together, but we found ways to keep each other safe and all of
so the,
that. You
so
know,
the if you look at the performance of Fauci, there were two aspects to him which is very bothersome. On one hand, his statements that of masking and isolation and so on and so forth to some extent was valid. His policies on lockdown was not well thought out. He didn't really think of what it would mean globally across society, and he railroaded quite a few people into that. The other aspect is the origin of the pandemic itself, where his hands are tied in pretty deep in some pretty nasty stuff. And not only him, but there seems to be a shadow environment of bioweapons and biological research that went underground for a while, that is now beginning to emerge. The data and the information is beginning to emerge more and more. So one thing is very clear, that COVID, unofficially, the scientific community and almost all the US governmental agencies off the record are now of the opinion that it was a man made pandemic. It was created by a group of scientists who were messing with viruses in ways that they had no business doing. And they were doing it without adequate supervision or controls. And that is the consensus right now, off the record. And that, how do I say it is off the record? Because you can see the actions that are now emerging quietly beneath the radar. People are doing that. The National Association for Biosecurity and Biosafety is coming out with hard, very, very hard restrictions on biological research that has pandemic potential. The two of the biggest agencies with the largest scientific analyst task force in their employ, which is the FBI, who has scientists, and the US Department of Energy, which has scientists on staff, not external scientists. They're actually paid and on employ of US Department of Energy and FBI. Their own scientists are now coming out and saying that, yes, this was the result of a lab accident or a lab event. They are still of the opinion that it was unintended, but regardless, it was a lab leak or a lab event that caused a release of a virus that was probably enhanced in the lab for the purpose of studying what would take to enhance a virus. They enhanced it and they created a monster that escaped. This particular consensus is now widespread in all agencies. And as a result, you have situations where USAID is now shutting down Deep Vision, which is its $125 million global virus hunting program. They just shut it down 2 weeks ago. The NIH is now put out very restrictive guidelines to all its foreign collaborating labs, that from now on, once a year, you are going to turn over all your raw data. You're going to let us look at your lab books, because essentially they paid $3.75 million to this non-governmental organization that shared that money with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And when push came to shove, and when the shit hit the fan, and NIH said, "Listen, I want to look at your data and want to see how." What I want to see your lab notebooks to see what you created and what was your safety records and so on and so forth. We said, "Up yours! You can go take a hike." And there was absolutely no enforcement capacity in the contract for NIH to say, "No, we are going to come in and do." Just think about this. You have the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima. The only time a nuclear bomb has ever been used, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Total 250,000 dead, right? And imagine the amount of regulation on nuclear research that is now happening. You have an international agency that has the teeth to go into any member country involved in nuclear research and say that, hey, I'm going to come and do an inspection. And if you don't let me come and do an inspection, we're going to shut you down. We're going to put an oil embargo. We're going to put a trade embargo. We're going to put sanctions. Now, so you will agree that nuclear warfare is an instrument of mass devastation, mass destruction. Now, this one virus accidentally resulted in 25 million dead. West 250,000, West 25 million. And to this day, we have no international organization capable of going into any country and saying, "Hey, you guys are doing some stuff that's likely to threaten the safety of the entire world. We're going to come and do an inspection and see what you're going to do." And there's no way you can do it now. That structure does not exist. And so people are taking a hard look as to what is being allowed where. Right now, the non-governmental organization that is involved uh, with this particular institute in China has relationships with labs in the US, in UNC Chapel Hill and Duke University Singapore campus, and they have published their proposals. They have written proposals to agencies requesting funding for research that would allow them to ship virus across the oceans. And in that proposal, they actually say that they've been doing such shipments for years. They actually say in that proposal, it's called the diffuse proposal, submitted to DARPA in April of 2018. DARPA rejected the proposal as too risky, but that doesn't, regardless, the fact that they even submitted that proposal reveals their thought process. And they claim in that proposal that they have over 180 viral strains in these collaborating labs whose ability to spill over into the community is as yet not understood. So they have 180 potential pandemics in test tubes floating around the US in labs that we don't know. Any one of them could be, or maybe none of them. But guess what? Who's overseeing all this? Just a bunch of scientists whose only interest is what nature paper and science paper they're going to submit so that they can have their hour of fame and their next McCarthy Award or the next Nobel Prize. To hell with the 25 million who died. I lost patience here in this pandemic.
Wow, that is, listeners, I hope you're getting the gravity of what Dr. Iyer just said.
It's there. I'm not saying this. I'm not inventing this.
No.
Public. It's public information.
But Sally, I'm sure a lot of people are not aware of this.
They're not aware of it because the conversation has not happened. The conversation has not happened at a higher level, at a mass media level. And which is one of the reasons why I wrote The Reaper's Dance. I wrote The Reaper's Dance for two reasons. One was the pandemic by October, November 2020, and definitely by mid 2021, there were several books about the pandemic already out there. But every one of them spent a lot of time and their focus was the science of the virus. And they went into great detail of how people collected the virus from mines in Tongguan in Yunnan province, how they took it here, what they manipulated. They went into great details on this sequence and that DNA and that RNA and how, arcane stuff that only I, a scientist, would be excited by. But nobody was talking about the mother who died. Nobody talked about the father or the husband who had to watch his wife, his 42-year-old wife, gasp her last breath through a cell phone video. Nobody was talking about that. All right. Nobody was talking about the son who could not cremate his parents because he was prevented from touching the COVID-ridden body. And they were cremated by some unknown person in a mass crematorium. Nobody is talking about graves, that there were so many dead that the graves were being cut narrower and the dead were actually lowered into the grave lying on their sides so that they take up less space and they can put more number of bodies per square yard in the ground. You know, the emotionality of that my father or my mother cannot even lie comfortably in their grave. Can you imagine the and that you cannot even have, there's no, see, right now when you grieve, there is a completion, there is a process where you hold hands, you say bye bye. My sister-in-law lost her father. To this day, she has not seen the body. She never saw the face. She was not allowed to get near. She doesn't have completion. The death occurred 2 years ago. She till day she will break down and cry. She doesn't have completion that she lost her father and she was not be able to say goodbye to him. See, it is like 25 million airplane crashes happen. You know, when people die in an airplane crash, you don't get to say goodbye. And that's the trauma of the survivors who go around saying that, oh my God, I wonder what his last moment would have been. What was going through his mind? Who was holding his hand? Nothing. So when I look at that, and then I look at these people who are just calculating about, I'm going to see which pandemic I'm going to can happen. Guys, where did you lose touch with humanity? That you got so sucked into the intellectual grandeur of what you were doing, that you got so excited by the fact that you could go into the nucleic acid, into the sequence of a creature, which is a virus, of another organism, and manipulate it and suddenly give it a new property that you could never see. You wanted to play God and you ended up becoming the devil.
This is very profound. So that's very profound, and we definitely need more voices like that because I mean, mine is not as egregious as that, but there was times I think I almost lost my humanity. I get too into the details and intellectual part of things that the emotions. Who cares? I'm not gonna lie. I've personally almost lost my touch with humanity. Do you think that's the greatest challenge of humanity, that we lose our sense of humanity? We are too much into not just pursuing intellectual achievement, but also just fame and power, and then to hell with everybody else.
Yes, we lose our ability to connect. See, if I saw you as equal to me and I feel that there is a connection, then whatever I do, actions, I feel responsible about my actions as to how it will affect your fate, right? That's the reason why if you don't do things that will put your children at risk, because you feel a connection with them. That's the reason why you don't put your family at risk with your actions. No matter how brilliant you may be, you don't take an action that will put your family at risk. The point is, scientists, they forget who they are responsible to. You are given an enormous privilege by being given the skill and intellectual power of your mind to create. That power has to be used responsibly, and you have to be accountable. And that means that the structures that govern your exercise of that you need external guard. So when you drive down the highway at 70 miles an hour, there is external guardrails that make sure that your vehicle remains on the road. There are yellow lines and white lines and dotted lines telling you, giving you constant cues as to what is the correct part of the road and what is the dangerous part of the road. And those are external. Then there are internal guardrails, your brakes, your accelerator, all of that allow you control of the car, your steering wheel. So both external and internal controls ensure your safety. And therefore, you can go at 100 miles an hour. But if you were on a little go kart cobbled together in your backyard with a piece of plywood and some wheels with a stick for a brake, and you go down Devil Hill in San Francisco, that's what these guys were doing. They were manipulating viruses in a BSL-2. BSL-2 is one of the it is the level of security and safety in a dentist's office. You've seen the movie Outbreak, Dustin Hoffman wearing that astronaut suit.
No, but I have a general idea what you're talking about.
All right, so that's a BSL-4, and in that movie they show BSL-4 and BSL-3s both. They were operating on these viruses in BSL-2, which is just a hood and a mask and a white coat. That's it, and gloves. There's no protection. It is negligence and arrogance to the highest degree. So these are the things that are very, 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 very troublesome. Because, and what is troublesome is that if you look at that proposal that got rejected by DARPA, what is shocking in that proposal is not that it got rejected. What is shocking is that this is what they thought they could do safely. They were actually thinking of doing these things. And they thought that this was good science. They thought that this was it is definitely very clever science. I make no mistake about it. It's brilliant. The kind of stuff that they were trying to do is brilliant. So if you were to find a very innovative way of cutting your own neck, guess what? I can't clap for that. Oh, you found a very brilliant way of cutting your throat. Excellent. So that's what's out at stake for humanity, not just the US, not UK, not Europe, but humanity. Because right now there are more than 180 such viruses right now in their labs, which they have said themselves. I'm not saying it.
Hope listeners, I really do hope you're getting this, because this is just profound and, be quite frank, scary.
Terrifying.
It's very, 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 very terrifying. I mean, I knew that this pandemic was gonna reveal things as a tip of the iceberg, but oof, this is just, let's just hope. Well, I can't say this.
No, I mean there is some light. There is increasing awareness in the policymakers.
That's good.
The current administration took a step forward to shut it down. NIH has demanded that from now on, this is the kind of high level accountability they're going to watch. But mind you, there's a lot of already the various scientists who do this kind of work. They are protesting. They're saying, "Oh, we're going to fall back." Oh, that's another thing. A very common argument. Oh, if we don't do it, some other rogue nation is going to do it. They will find a way of creating a doomsday organism and find a vaccine to that will immunize their soldiers and their population, and they'll unleash it, and it's a bioweapon. Yes, theoretically, that is a possibility. So we got to do it and do that first. I don't think so. That's not the argument. Someone else is going to unleash Armageddon, therefore we have to unleash it first. Now, what kind of crazy, what's that MAD, they used to call it in the nuclearism, mutually assured destruction, MAD. Yeah, that's what it is.
My goodness. Oof. Well, you already said there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm happy you said that, because I want to just go.
And I think we can pretty much finish our podcast at this level right now, because there's not much to talk about after this.
Yeah, you already provide so much stuff. Anyways, I only have one more question though. This is probably slightly off topic, but probably could tie into the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. There's been talk of, what's it, inequities when it came to racial outcomes of health, and generally white people get better outcomes of hospitals than, well, they normally say black or brown people. But I'm not gonna talk about how true or false that is. I already know that's true, especially if you see on certain communities. New York, I mean, they're guilty of that, but I'm not gonna get too deep into it. I'm gonna frame this question different. I'm not gonna say if DEI is viable. How is it viable is the question I'm gonna ask you to the healthcare system. How viable it is to implement diversity, equity, care to improve health outcomes to the underprivileged, minorities, and all that.
You don't have a choice. You either do DEI or you die. So it's, DEI is day and DIE is die. So you either day or die. And, DEI, day, is Latin for God. And that's where divinity comes from. The word divinity comes from day, which is Latin for God. But DEI, in one of the biggest lessons of the pandemic was that if the only way you could be safe is if everyone else was also healthy. Because as long as there was somebody infected, there's always going to be a variant coming out of that person. Because each person is a place where the virus multiplies and has an opportunity to mutate and come out as a variant. So think about this. A virus goes into the body. It uses the human cell machinery to make copies of itself. But because it's using a human machinery to make copies of a viral nucleic acid, the copying mechanism is not perfect. There are little errors that creep in. So it makes 1 billion copies out of it. So even if it was making a one error every 1,000 copies, that's 1 million copies that have errors. There's 1 million mutants. The majority of those mutations usually are not helpful to the virus, but it's like gambling. If you have unlimited amount of money and unlimited throws of the dice, eventually you're going to hit the jackpot. So that's what a virus is. A man who's infected with the virus is a virus manufacturing machine, and not only a virus manufacturing machine, is a variant manufacturing machine. And therefore, if you are not going to take care of everyone equally, give them access, give them equal access, you simply cannot exist as a society. We are in this together. There is no us and them, it is we. We have to think of us and them as we. And until we start thinking of everyone as we, there will be neither us nor them. It is either DEI or die.
Heard that. If you still think DI is complete horse crap, well, I think it is in a financial sense. But when it comes to the medical, I think I have to absolutely agree. To help everyone. I mean, it should be that simple, but certain people, they have clever and subtle ways saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'm with you," and then their actions has a different outcome or intended outcome, I should say. But yeah, no, we are human beings. I mean, America is still the most diverse nation, and the fact that we haven't gotten this mindset together, at least within most of the people,
it's not that bad. I mean, we are better off than many other places, but still we have a lot of distance to go.
Right. That's true.
And I think the conversation of diversity. See, one of the things about diversity, equity, inclusion is the conversation is still very superficial. We talk of diversity on the basis of skin color, race and ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation or gender orientation. That's a very, very superficial way of looking at DEI. True DEI is based on diversity of opportunity, diversity of functionality, diversity of including people of different capacities and different capabilities into a productive unit, whether it is in the workforce or in the society. You want to have people of different capacities. See, what if you go to a forest, you will never see one kind of plant. It is always a diversity. There's a multiple, and the different plants and different trees, and they all cohabit and they promote each other. So diversity is a forest is a diverse environment, and strong ecosystems are always diverse. Same with companies. The strong society, strong companies, they're always diverse. Weak companies are uniform, because once you're uniform, you have only one way of approaching life. And unfortunately, life has 1 million flavors. to it. It's unpredictable. So if you have only one set formula to deal with it, you're going to be out very soon. See, the essence of life is being adaptable. The reason why dinosaurs are not around with us anymore is that they couldn't adapt. And a tiny little shrew evolved and became the mammalian population that eventually evolved to who you and I are. So, it's adaptability and to be adaptable, you need to be able to embrace change. You need to embrace different flavors of choices and different flavors of existence. Without that, you can't adapt.
Companies, dying healthcare systems, pay attention to this. Listeners, just pay attention to this because we are, I mean, and just to add to that I mean, we are a very global society too. We're interconnected with many countries through websites and chats and all of that. So, you know, it's nice to think, oh, okay, yeah, we got to deal with only America and all that. Yeah, it's simple, but we also got to help, other allies. We're a very interconnected society. If you want to be isolationist, I mean, America was like that, especially prior to World War One. I mean, it wasn't doing that well when it was a very isolationist nation. We don't want to deal with your problems. Okay, okay, bye, get out. That's not. Who cares? That's your problem. I don't need to deal with it. I'm closing
Yeah.
off my borders. But America went and learned World War, especially during World War II, you had to be connected with global issues. And for the most part, yeah, we came out better with that than just being a very isolationist nation. So, and just to add to that whole diversity in a global sense, not just a superficial, like the way sadly a lot of Americans are conditioned to. You already said it well with the whole skin color, sexual orientation, gender, whatever I identify with, all that. Yeah, no, and that's my biggest problem with the DEI and the superficial context that you're not addressing the deep need issues. You're just
It
doing this
needs
for
to be deep.
brownie.
You
You're just
can't
doing
do
this for
the
brownie points, to make yourself look good, and that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Because
That's why I'm critical of
a lot of
DEI.
companies use it as a checkbox,
Right,
and
exactly.
checkbox DEI is worse than actually racism. I have more respect for someone who is actually discriminatory than someone who just does checkbox.
It's okay. I got one Indian person in this podcast, Ravi. That's it. No more Indians. No, I don't. You're definitely not the first Indian. You will be definitely the last. Just anyone who wants to be in this podcast is welcome. That's it. I don't really. The only thing I would discriminate is character and low value, and those are the kind of people I get rid of. It's not about skin color. It's not about gender. It's not about any of that. If you have such low value, yeah, then I have to say, and then especially if you don't respond or anything like that, oh, I gotta keep on moving.
Yeah.
Bye. Can't wait for you. There's people that want to be in this podcast. I'm not gonna keep them on hold just because a few people want to be, not non-responsive to my requests. So it's okay. I keep going, and then there's people I have kicked out because they came in too late, and those are kind of people I deal with. I mean, like low quality, low responsible, low respect. Yeah, that doesn't require a skin or particular gender. It's a low quality person, in my honest opinion. So that's the kind of discrimination that I proudly project. Low character, not not based on skin color. Doesn't matter you come from even China or Antarctica. I don't think no humans ever born in Antarctica as yet, or whatever nation, whatever gender. As long as you're willing to talk, have a conversation, and provide some value to my audience. That's all I care about at the end of the day. That's the only discriminating factor I really got. Other than that, I don't tolerate discrimination just based on, oh, Ravi looks dark. Oh, this other person looks too white. Oh, this person looks too Asian, too Chinese looking. Ew, I don't want those. No, 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 no. No, you're already cutting off opportunities right there. I just might as well not do a podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Just might as well not do the damn thing. So, that's all I gotta say. I think being open minded and learn from others was always a wonderful thing. I continue to be a learner just because I host doesn't mean I know everything, and I don't dare project that. No, 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 no. A few people say you're very smart. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm just learning and just trying to be the best I could be. Some people say I'm smart. That's nice and all, but I can't take that compliment wholeheartedly. So, all right, enough yammering about me. Let me just, yep, that's the thing. Yep, perfect timing. Plug-in time. Get his book. Get his book. The Reaper's Dance, 1,000 Days of COVID. That's a provocative title, but I'm sure that it's gonna be worthy of listen. And I already do have that website. .com. You go to his books and blogs,
Yeah,
and you got
actually, I want to tell people the
sure.
podcast is that for the next 48 days, every day I'll be posting one promo code free for a free audio download of the book. So if you miss it one day, you can try it the next day. So it was given to me by Audible. The book is available in Kindle, paperback, hard copy, and Audible. So for those who like to just listen and read while they're driving, just listen to a book while they're driving, that book is available in Audible. And for the next 48 days, you'll have 48 chances to to snag a free copy if you want to. So you'll have to go to my website, drier.com, and it's right there on the top of the page. You can see it. So you just click on the link and put that code in. And if somebody else has not beaten you to the worm, some other bird has not snagged the worm, you'll get that. If not, it's not really that expensive a book. It's on Kindle. It is just $3.99. So I did not write the book to make money out of the book because I'm quite happy with my rest of my life and my career. The book serves a purpose in waking people up and wanting them to start really caring about the issues that matter and bringing those issues to the people who represent them in government. You need to step forward and talk to your representative so that he can properly represent your safety of your loved ones and your family. And that's what it is.
So remember, you try what once a day, right? If you don't get it, it's the next day, and then worst case scenario is only about $4.
You pay more in coffee in Starbucks.
Come on, I mean, if you could get coffee, you could definitely get this book. No excuse, people. No excuse. It'll be hard on you in this one if you don't get the book. Oh, I don't have 399 cents. Oh, come on. This credit card and all of that. And then you can just pay the bank back. Come on. Come
Yeah.
on. This is one of the cheapest books, one of the cheapest prices ever. It's almost unbelievable. Not making this up. Go to the website, check it out yourself. Don't take my word for it. Go to the website. Take his word for it, if anything, not mine. Is there anything else you want me to?
Yeah, people who want to follow. I mean, this writing this book is not the only thing I do. I write blogs, and I'm going to continue being active in social consciousness of advocating increased connection and increased social responsibility of people who have a business to be responsible. So I'm right now working on a little project with two immensely gifted and talented young students who are working with me to create a book on neurodiversity, to get a better understanding of how people with diverse mental capacities can work together and succeed in the workforce. So that's my next book that I'm writing. I'm writing a book on diabetes, on a program that was successful in my practice on managing diabetes, and which is a big problem in the US. And so there are right now three books. Tales from Nana's Kitchen is a collection of homemade recipes, herbal recipes, and herbal remedies that my grandmother used to make to treat us from sore throat to little scrapes in the skin. So these were stuff that I want to put together and put out for people. So these are things that I'm involved in. You can keep tabs with me on my Website, drier.com. On my Goodreads page, as an author page, you can see what I'm up to and communicate with me. I always reply and look forward to hearing more from you.
Definitely want to keep in contact, especially those recipes and all of that, other stuff you be writing. That's gonna be very, very valuable. See, you ready to provide value. That's all I care about. Value. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty broad as long as it could be practical and very helpful to people. I am not going to talk about, I don't know, dragons and all that, even though it could be fun, but it's not practical. That just me wear my more entertainment hat. That's more for like the second segment of technology and all that stuff. That could just talk about those fun things and or scary things like sometimes AI. Even though I love AI, but I'm always vigilant about what it could do. You know, just like all great innovative technology has some pretty strong negative consequences. It's like I'm sure car at one point was feared, especially running down horses back probably 100 years ago. That used to be a problem, but we have so many cars now, it's so normalized. Eventually AI is gonna be normalized, but enough crazy talk for me. So I'm gonna. Is there anything you want to add, Dr. Iyer, before I wrap this up?
No, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you and being on the show. Hope the listeners got something of value. I'm sorry if I scared anybody, but there is enough to be worried about. But at the same time, there's a clear line of action, and that is call your congressman, call your representative, call your elected official, and tell them that you need much better safety and security guidelines governing high tech research. I'm not a person who says this research should not be done. I think we should do this research, but the way it's being done right now is too dangerous. It needs to be regulated much more.
You're not against of the what, you're against the how, the process of it so far, right? So not the research itself. I mean, that's totally understandable. That's like me with AI. I am for AI,
But
but
it
I'm
needs to be,
against,
but we need to have some checks and balances, and we need to
exactly.
understand exactly what we are doing, why we are doing, and for who. That is
Yep.
what is important.
That can be applied for both the research and AI. So
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect. All righty then. So this is a wrap of this lengthy but scarily and profound podcast, and with solutions. So hey, as long as it's got some solutions, I'm fine with it. You know, sometimes we need to be spooked a bit, just have a sense of urgency because we get too comfortable, forget it. We will not, we will be unaware, we will be very, very, we just live in our own bubbles and be very stupid and uninformed. So that's all I can say about that. All right. So wherever you at, whatever is day, afternoon, night, you have a blessed morning, afternoon, night.
Thank you.